Kale stood at the edge of the landing bay as the human ship came into view. It was smaller than the ships of the Varine, less polished, less elegant. Yet it moved with speed and purpose, like a predator in space. He had heard humans were a strange race, quick to anger, full of emotion, and yet somehow they survived wars that should have broken them. This was Kel's first mission alongside humans. The Varine High Council had sent him as a representative, part of a new alliance. The enemy was the core, insect-like creatures that destroyed everything in their path. They had no fear, no mercy, no reason, just hunger and rage. Kale looked over at the others in his squad. They stood tall and proud, their armor shining, their weapons clean and sharp. Each of them had trained since childhood for war. Discipline was in their blood. He was proud to stand with them. The human ship docked. With a loud hiss, the doors opened. Out stepped a small group of human soldiers, their armor dented and worn, their weapons hanging from straps. They didn't move in perfect lines. Some were laughing. One was chewing something. Leading them was a tall man with short dark hair and a serious face. He walked with confidence, eyes sharp and alert. He stopped in front of Kale and gave a short nod. "I'm Mason, squad leader," he said in a calm voice. Kale stepped forward. "Kale of Varine, I speak for my squad." Mason looked over Kale's armor and nodded again. "You'll do fine." Kale didn't know what that meant, but he said nothing. He followed Mason and his squad through the narrow halls of the ship. It smelled like oil and sweat. The lights flickered in places. Humans, it seemed, didn't care much for neatness. Inside the briefing room, a large screen showed the map of their next target. A colony had gone silent. No messages. No signs of life. Scout drones showed burned buildings and holes in the ground. The core had arrived. "We drop in 2 hours," Mason said. "We go in fast, find survivors if any, then secure the area." Kale studied the map. "Why not bombard the site from orbit, burn everything?" Mason looked at him. "Because there may be people alive down there." Kale didn't argue. Varine logic said remove the threat first, then search later. But humans were different. They placed life above tactics. As the teams prepared, Kale observed the humans. Some cleaned their weapons, others talked and laughed. One woman was writing in a small book. They seemed relaxed. Didn't they fear death? He walked over to the woman. She had red hair tied back and freckles on her face. She smiled as he approached. "I'm Lily," she said. "Kale," he replied. "You are not afraid?" She looked down at her book. "Always afraid. But fear helps you think." Kale didn't understand. In Varine training, fear was weakness. Yet here, this small human woman accepted it. Soon, the ship rumbled. They moved into landing position. Everyone gathered near the drop bay. The floor shook slightly, and the air became heavier. Mason stood in front of them. This colony was home to 3,000 people. Now, we don't know. Keep your eyes open. Stick to your squad. If you see 1 core, expect 10 more. Kale nodded. His blood was calm, his breath steady. Round him, his fellow Varine warriors stood tall. But the humans were different. Tom, a heavy soldier with a loud voice, cracked a joke. Donnie, a sharp-eyed scout, smiled without fear. And Mason simply watched the lights change on the wall, as if waiting for something more than just the signal. The drop doors opened. Wind rushed. In below was the ruined colony, half covered in ash and broken metal. Fires burned in the distance. The silence was deep, broken only by the hum of engines. They descended quickly, landing in the center of the town square. Buildings stood like skeletons, no movement, no sounds. Kale moved with his squad in a clean formation. They scanned every corner. His weapon was ready, but still no sign of life. The human squad spread out. Mason gave signals with his hand, silent and smooth. They checked doorways, alleys, rooftops. It was like they had done this 100 times. Suddenly, a noise came from behind a wrecked vehicle. Mason raised a fist. Everyone froze. From the shadows came a small figure. A child, dirty, shaking, eyes wide with terror. Lily rushed forward and lifted him up gently. "He's alive," she said. "We have at least one survivor." Kale stared. The child should not have survived alone. Yet somehow, he had. Then the radio crackled. A new voice, urgent. Team Bravo just vanished. No signals, no bodies, just gone. Mason's face changed. Not fear, but something colder. He looked at the sky. "They're here," he said. Kale didn't understand. Who? Mason met his eyes. "The Corps don't kill to win. They kill to teach us fear. And they always wait for the right moment." A distant rumble echoed through the ruins. Dust fell from broken walls. The child in Lily's arms began to cry. Kale raised his weapon. His heart beat faster, not from fear of death, but from something deeper. He had fought many battles, faced monsters before, but now, standing beside these humans, he felt something different. They were not the strongest, they were not the fastest, but there was something in them he could not explain. They were not ready to die. They were ready to fight no matter what came. And for the first time, Kale wondered what he would see in the hours ahead. Kale moved through the broken colony with sharp focus. Dust and smoke hung in the air. The sky above was dark, hiding the sun behind thick gray clouds. Buildings stood half-burnt, their walls cracked and blackened. Everything smelled like metal, fire, and old blood. Mason raised his hand to signal a halt. The squad froze near the edge of a collapsed school. Kale stayed low beside him, his rifle steady. "They were here," Mason said, pointing to claw marks. "Along the ground. Tracks are fresh. Maybe one are old." Kale studied the marks. They were deep, dragged across concrete. The Corps had passed through here recently, and not in small numbers. "Why did they leave no bodies?" Kale asked. "Where are the dead?" Mason looked at him. "That's how they work. They don't leave anything behind. No enemy, no witness." Kale frowned. "In Varine battles, the fallen were respected. Even enemies were counted. But the Corps erased everything, even their victims." The human squad moved forward in a loose formation. They didn't march like soldiers. They flowed, adjusting to terrain and cover. Kale's Varine warriors moved in perfect lines behind them. The two groups were different in every way, yet for now, they worked together. Lily walked beside the rescued child, wrapped in a thermal blanket and holding a can of water. His eyes were wide, still full of fear. He didn't speak, only watched the shadows. Donnie moved ahead as scout. Her voice came through the radio. "Movement near the tower. Could be one of ours, or not." Mason nodded. "We check it out. Keep it tight." They approached a tall structure, once a signal tower. Its top was gone, and the steel frame leaned forward like it might fall at any moment. They moved slowly. Weapons raised. Suddenly, a loud screech echoed from behind the tower. Kel's blood ran cold. It was not a sound of metal or wind. It was alive. It was the Corps. Shapes burst from the ground. 5, 10, then more. Black shells. Long arms with blades. Sharp legs that clicked as they ran. Their eyes were red, glowing in the dark. "Contact, left side. Take cover," Mason shouted. Gunfire started. Human weapons roared with flashing lights and smoke. The Corps rushed forward, screeching. Kale opened fire, aiming for the eyes. He struck one, and it fell. Another leapt toward him, but a blast from Tom's shotgun knocked it back. The Varine held the center, fighting with energy blades and plasma rifles. Their formation was tight. Each soldier covered the next. Kale fought at the front, blade in one hand, rifle in the other. He moved with speed, blocking strikes and firing clean shots. The humans moved differently. Mason ducked between cover points, giving fast orders. Donnie climbed onto a broken car and fired from above. Lily stayed near the child, shielding him while firing at anything that got too close. Kale saw a Corps climb over the wall to flank them. He raised his weapon, but before he could fire, Mason had already shot it twice and moved on. Kale was surprised. The human had seen it faster than him. More Corps came, swarming from the streets and broken buildings. The noise was loud now. Screams, gunfire, screeches, metal crashing. One Varine soldier was grabbed by Tukor and pulled down. His armor cracked. He vanished under the swarm. We're getting surrounded, Donnie shouted. We need to fall back, Mason nodded. Back to the school. Defensive line. The group pulled back quickly. Kale helped Tom carry a wounded Varine. The school walls gave them cover. Inside, they set up firing positions at the windows. The Corps charged again, but this time the humans were ready. Mason threw a grenade. It exploded with a loud flash, throwing 3 creatures back. Kale stood beside Lily and fired nonstop, his hands moving fast. After several long minutes, the attack slowed. The Corps began to pull back, fading into the smoke and ruins. They're falling back, Kale said. Mason didn't lower his weapon. It's not over. They never retreat this soon. Kale looked around. Bodies of Corps lay in the street, but many were gone, dragged back by their own kind. The humans were quiet now. No cheering, no celebration, just silent focus. Lily checked the child again. He was safe, but still shaking. Kale walked over and looked at the boy. What did you see? He asked softly. The boy pointed toward the tunnels. They came from under, broke the ground, took my sister. Kale's face grew hard. He turned to Mason. There are tunnels. They're hiding underground. Mason looked at the map. There's a drainage system below this colony. If they're down there, they're using it to move fast and ambush us. Kale felt uneasy. The Corps were strong above ground. Underground, they would be worse. Mason called in a report to command, requesting scan of underground system. Possible hive under the colony. High threat level. The reply came back. Negative. No satellite feed. Interference is strong. You're on your own. Mason lowered the radio. Figures. We'll have to check it ourselves. Kale stepped forward. I'll lead. My armor is strong. I can go first. Mason shook his head. No one goes alone. We move as a team. Kale was surprised. In Varine culture, the strongest took the risk. But here, even the leaders shared the danger. They found an old service tunnel behind a broken wall. A heavy hatch led below. It smelled of damp air and decay. One by one, they climbed down into the darkness. Kale led the way with Mason behind him. The tunnel was wide enough for 2 people, with old lights that blinked weakly. The air was heavy, every sound echoed. They moved slowly, weapons ready. The ground was wet. The walls were cracked. Strange slime covered the corners. Then Kale heard it, a soft clicking. Ahead, in the dark, he raised his hand. Everyone stopped. Silence followed. Then the clicking grew louder. The Corps were waiting. Mason whispered, They're not running. They're drawing us in. Kale gripped his blade tighter. He had never felt fear like this before. Not in open battle. Not in the sky. But here, in the dark, where every step felt like a trap, he began to understand. This was not just war. This was something more. The tunnel was colder now. The light from their helmets barely touched the walls ahead. Water dripped from broken pipes, and the air was thick with the smell of rot and dust. Kale moved slowly, his blade in one hand, rifle in the other. Behind him came Mason, then Donnie, Lily, Tom, and 2 more Varine soldiers. The child was left with a secure team above. Mason's voice came through the comm quietly. Stay sharp. The Corps want us down here. Kale understood. The deeper they went, the clearer the signs became. The walls were marked with deep cuts. Web-like slime spread across the ceiling. Bones lay half buried in the mud. Not just human bones, but other species too. Suddenly, a noise echoed from ahead, a soft thump, followed by a low clicking sound. Kale raised his fist. Everyone stopped. The sound came again, closer. Mason pointed to Donnie. She moved forward slowly, scanning the tunnel with a narrow flashlight. Her voice came in a whisper. Movement ahead. 1 target, maybe 2. They crept forward. Kale felt his body tense. His Varine senses were sharp, trained for danger. But this place made him feel something new. Unease around the next corner. They found the first sign of the trap. A dead human soldier, his body still warm. There were no wounds, no burns. Just a look of terror on his face. They didn't kill him to eat, Mason said. They killed him to send a message. Kale looked closer. The man's weapon had been crushed, his radio destroyed. The Corps had taken his gear and placed his body in the open. A warning. Then the lights flickered. A strange hum filled the air. Suddenly, the floor under Donnie cracked. She shouted as it gave way, and she fell through into a lower tunnel. Donnie, Mason yelled, dropping to his knees to look down. I'm okay. Her voice called from below. Twisted my ankle. Something's down here. I hear them. Cale jumped down without waiting. He landed beside Donnie and helped her to stand. The tunnel here was narrower and darker. The walls pulsed with a faint green glow. Above, Mason lowered a rope. We pull her up, then we leave. This is a nest. Cale supported Donnie as she grabbed the rope. As Mason and Tom pulled her up, Cale heard something behind him, a soft breath, a hiss. He turned. Out of the shadows crawled a Corps unlike the others. It was larger, with thick armor and long claws. Its mouth opened wide, showing rows of teeth. Cale shouted and fired. The blast hit its side but barely slowed it. It charged, striking him hard. He flew back into the wall. The others above opened fire. Mason dropped a grenade. The explosion shook the tunnel. Cale pushed himself up. Blood dripped from his lip. The Corps was still alive. Crawling now, trying to reach him. Cale pulled out his blade and stepped forward. He swung fast and deep, cutting into the creature's neck. The blade sparked against its shell, then sank in. With a scream, the Corps collapsed. Mason helped Cale up. You all right? Cale nodded, breathing hard. That one was different. They're evolving, Mason said. Every time they lose, they change. That one was waiting for us. Double quotes. Back in the upper tunnel, they pressed forward carefully. The path turned deeper, and signs of the Corps grew worse. Strange cocoons hung from the walls. Inside one, they saw movement. Lily stopped and aimed. That's a human in there. We can't save them all, Tom said. Not now. Mason nodded slowly. Mark the spot. We come back later. Cale felt anger rise in his chest. The Corps didn't just kill. They took people and turned them into something else. Soon they reached a large open chamber. The roof arched high, and the floor was layered with old tech and broken machines. This must have been part of the old colony system. Cale stepped in first, scanning the area. Clear, he said. But as the others entered, a loud screech filled the air. Hidden doors opened from the walls. Dozens of Corps poured out. It's a trap, Mason shouted. Fall back. Gunfire filled the air. The Varine formed a circle, guarding each other's backs. The humans moved fast, finding cover and picking targets. The Corps rushed like a wave. Cale swung his blade again and again. His armor was scratched and burning. Beside him, Mason fired nonstop. Donnie, even with her ankle wrapped, kept shooting from behind cover. Tom was grabbed by one Corps, its claws digging into his arm. Cale moved fast, slicing it down. Tom grunted, holding his bleeding arm. Still good, he said. Lily covered the left flank. She took down 3 before one reached her. It leapt, and she rolled back, blasting it in the face. Then a loud roar echoed. From the back of the chamber came a massive shape. It was a Corps brute, twice the size of the others, covered in thick plates. Its arms were like hammers. It charged with wild strength. Mason threw a flash grenade. It hit. But the brute didn't stop. It slammed into the Varine line, scattering them. Cale ran forward. On me. He jumped, driving his blade into the brute's shoulder. It roared and slammed him into a wall. Mason grabbed a heavy launcher from Tom's back. Cale, get clear. Cale rolled aside just in time. Mason fired. The rocket hit the brute in the chest. It exploded, throwing the creature back into the wall where it crashed and didn't move again. The rest of the Corps hesitated. Then, without a sound, they retreated into the tunnels. Silence returned. Cale dropped to one knee, breathing hard. His armor was damaged. His arms burned. Mason stood over him. That's why we don't rush into tunnels. Cale looked up. Understood. They checked their team. 2 Varine soldiers were dead. Donnie had cracked ribs. Tom's arm was torn, but he smiled anyway. Lily was helping bandage a wound on Mason's leg. Cale walked to the brute's body. It was still smoking. He stared at its face. They built this for war, he said. Mason nodded. And with just the test, Cale said nothing more. The Corps weren't just attacking. They were learning, improving, and waiting for the perfect time. He looked at the humans around him, bruised, bloodied, tired but still standing, and he realized this was only the beginning. The sun was rising when the squad returned to the forward base. The sky had a deep orange color, casting long shadows across the ruined colony. Smoke still rose in places, and small fires burned quietly in the distance. Cale's armor was scratched and scorched. He carried a broken piece of core armor in one hand, proof of what they had faced below. The human soldiers around him walked slowly, tired but alert. Their steps were heavy, but their eyes still watched everything inside the base. Medics rushed forward. Donnie was taken to a medical tent. Tom refused a stretcher. Even though his arm was wrapped in thick bandages, Lily sat on a crate, drinking water and helping another soldier remove a damaged chest plate. Cale stood near the entrance, watching it all. The Vaurien believed in discipline and silence after battle. But here, he saw something different. Some soldiers were laughing, even with wounds on their faces. Others shared food. Music played softly from a broken speaker. One man limped across the courtyard, holding a small picture of his family. Another woman sat alone, her eyes closed, holding a necklace in her hand. Mason walked up beside Cale. His leg was wrapped in cloth, and there was a long cut on his face. "You're quiet," Mason said. "I'm watching," Cale replied. "And what do you see?" Cale didn't answer right away. He looked at a group of soldiers sitting in a circle, passing around a warm drink. They laughed, even after what we saw underground. Mason nodded. "That's how we survive. We laugh. We remember home. We hold onto something." Cale turned to face him. "The Vaurien don't do this. We return, clean our weapons, write reports, and wait for the next order. That sounds efficient," Mason said, smiling a little, but not very human. Cale looked around again. The humans were not resting like soldiers. They were healing, in their own way, talking, laughing, sharing stories, even crying, but together. He saw Lily with the rescued child again. She gave him a toy she had carved from broken wood. The boy smiled for the first time. "She protects him like he's her own," Cale said. Mason looked over. "That's what we do. If we stop caring, we lose." Later, a meeting was held in the command tent. The squad leaders gathered around. A table filled with maps, data pads, and images from drones. Cale stood beside Mason. A senior officer pointed at a section of the map. "There's movement here. Large signals. The Corps are building something under the surface." Mason nodded. "We found signs of a hive, brute-class Corps, heavily armored, smarter." Another officer added, "They're growing faster than before. Our scans show heat sources spreading. They're not waiting. They're preparing for something big." The room went silent. Finally, the commander said, "We need to slow them down. We'll hit their underground tunnels. Mason, your squad leads the charge. Cale, your team will go with them." Cale nodded. "We're ready." Back outside, the team gathered near a set of crates. New weapons, armor repairs, and supplies were handed out. The mood was serious, but not cold. Lily gave Donnie a small charm made from her broken scope. "For luck," she said. Tom handed Cale a pack of rations. "Try the brown bar. It's terrible, but it gives energy." Cale accepted it, even though he didn't understand the joke. These humans were strange, but strong in ways the Vaurien had never studied. That evening, Cale sat beside Mason near the edge of the base. The stars were just starting to appear. "You fought them for years," Cale said. "The Corps." Mason looked up at the sky. "Yeah, first time they came, we lost entire cities. We weren't ready. We thought we were safe. How did you survive?" Mason took a deep breath. "We didn't give up. We lost family, friends, homes, but every time they hit us, we hit back harder." Cale nodded. "Your people are not the strongest physically, not the fastest, but you keep going." Mason looked at him. "You want to know our secret?" Kale said nothing, waiting. We don't fight to win every time, Mason said. We fight so others can live. We fight because someone has to stand up, even when it hurts. Kale thought about those words for a long time. Later, in the barracks, Kale found a wall filled with names and photos. Some were scratched, others had notes written under them, dates, locations, messages. What is this? Kale asked. Lily came up beside him. Those are the ones we lost. Kale read one message out loud. To my brother, I'll finish what you started. They help us remember, Lily said, so we don't forget why we fight. Kale placed a small symbol from his own armor on the wall. It was a mark of honor in Vaureen culture, given to those who showed courage. For the fallen, he said. The next day, the squads prepared to enter the tunnels again. The plan was clear: destroy the main hive before the core could grow stronger. But everyone knew it would be dangerous. As Kale stood with the human squad, he looked at each of them. Tom, with his arm now fixed but still bruised. Donnie, walking with a slight limp but holding her rifle like always. Lily, focused but calm. And Mason, quiet. Ready? Kale tightened the straps on his armor. He didn't feel like an outsider anymore. He was part of this now, this strange human way of war. Not just skill and weapons, but heart and hope. Before they left, Mason spoke to the group. We're not just going down there to fight. We're going down there to send a message. That we're not afraid. That we will not run. The squad raised their weapons. No cheers. No big speeches. Just silent nods. Kale looked toward the horizon. He didn't know what waited below. But he knew one thing. He would fight not just for his people, but for the humans beside him. They had shown him something the Vaureen never taught, and now he was ready to face whatever darkness waited underground. The sky was dark when Kel's squad arrived back at the forward base. The air smelled heavy, and the usual sounds of soldiers talking and machines working were quieter than before. A strange feeling hung over the camp, like something unseen was watching. Mason gathered the squad near the command tent. His face was tense. We found something new on the edge of the colony, he said. A core ship crashed. A queen ship. Kale frowned. A queen ship. What does that mean? Mason's voice was low. It means the core are bringing reinforcements. Bigger, deadlier. The squad listened quietly as Mason explained what the scouts had seen. The ship was huge, covered in dark plates and broken wings. From it came strange creatures. They moved slower, but were covered in thick armor and strange spikes. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. They're not just soldiers, Mason said. They're made to spread terror, to break us. Kale didn't understand. He had fought many enemies, but this was different. This was fear itself, made alive. That night, the base was tense. Soldiers gathered around small fires. Some played cards, others talked in whispers. Kale stayed near Mason, watching the sky. Suddenly, a scream broke the quiet. A scout ran into the camp, his face pale. They're coming, he gasped. The new creatures, the terror beasts. The alarm sounded. Lights flashed. Soldiers grabbed their weapons and moved to defend the camp. Kale stood with Mason near the wall. The creatures approached, their heavy steps shaking the ground. Their eyes glowed red, their claws sharp. But what made them terrifying was not their size or strength. It was the way they moved. Like shadows slipping through the dark. The humans fired first. Bullets, lasers, and grenades flew. But the creatures did not retreat. They came closer, their eyes seeming to look into the soldiers' minds. Kale felt a cold wave wash over him. It was not pain, but something deeper. A fear that slowed his heart, made his vision blur. He saw soldiers drop there, weapons frozen in place. Some screamed and ran, only to be caught and dragged away. Mason grabbed Kel's arm. Don't look into their eyes, he said. They feed on fear. Kale focused on the creatures' movements. They were slow, but powerful. Each step seemed to shake the earth. The creatures reached the wall and tried to break through. Lily fired a heavy gun, hitting one creature's head. It roared and stumbled back. For a moment, it looked hurt, but then its eyes turned darker, and it charged again. The humans shouted and fired. holding the line. Kale moved beside Mason, fighting with all his strength. But the fear was real. It was inside him now. Suddenly, Mason shouted, "Play the music." Kale looked around, confused. Mason pulled out a small device and pressed a button. A loud, strange sound filled the air. It was a song, a human melody. The soldiers joined in, shouting the words and singing loud. The creatures paused, their heads shaking as if disturbed. Their eyes lost focus for a moment. Kale saw hope. Mason yelled, "Hold the line. Don't let fear win." The humans fired again, pushing the creatures back step by step. The creatures finally retreated, disappearing into the night. The camp was quiet once more. Kale looked at Mason. "How did the music help?" Mason smiled tiredly. "Humans use many weapons. Not all shoot bullets. Music, laughter, hope. Things that keep us alive inside." Kale thought deeply. He had seen warriors fight with blades and guns, but this was different. The humans fought with their souls. That night, Kale sat alone and thought about what he had seen. Fear was a weapon, yes, but humans did not let it control them. They faced it and fought back in every way they could. He looked at the stars and whispered, "This is why they survive." The sun was setting, turning the sky to red and purple. The base was quiet but tense. Everyone knew this might be the last battle. The Corps were coming in full force, ready to destroy everything. Mason gathered the squad. "We hold the landing site," he said. "The transport won't arrive for 2 hours. We must keep the line until help comes." Kale looked at the humans around him. Tom's face was grim, Donnie's eyes sharp, Lily steady. Even with their wounds and tired bodies, they did not complain. They accepted their fate and prepared to fight. The Corps came like a storm from the dark fields. Thousands poured forward, their claws and jaws ready. The ground shook with their numbers. The air was filled with screams and gunfire. Kale stood beside Mason. They fired side by side, pushing back the creatures. The humans fought with desperate strength. Each shot was precise. Each move was survival. Lily took down 5 Corps in quick succession. Tom threw a grenade, clearing a path. Donnie moved with speed, scouting and warning the group. Kale fought with everything he had. His blade cut through shells. His rifle barked fire. But the enemy kept coming. Suddenly, a Corps grabbed Lily, dragging her away. Kale yelled and ran after them. He swung his blade, cutting the creature's arm. Lily broke free, falling to the ground but alive. Tom was hit next. His arm was torn, but he held his gun and kept fighting. Mason shouted orders. "Hold your ground. Don't let them through." The squad formed a circle, backs to each other, covering every side. They were surrounded but still fighting. Kale felt pain in his leg. He looked down and saw blood. A creature had scratched him. He ignored it, focusing on the fight. The battle lasted for hours. The soldiers grew tired. Some fell, but the others took their place, refusing to stop. Mason's voice was tired but strong. "We fight for each other. For those who cannot." Kale understood now. The humans did not fight alone. They fought as one. At one point, Mason handed Kale a heavy weapon. "Show them what we are." Kale fired. The Corps screamed and fell back. The humans cheered softly. Hope returned. Finally, the sound of engines filled the air. Reinforcements had arrived. The Corps began to retreat. Kale looked at the battlefield. Broken bodies, shattered weapons, burned ground. But the humans were still standing. Mason was helped to his feet, blood on his face but eyes bright. Kale felt respect, not just for their strength, but for their heart. This was the true power of humanity. The battle was over. The ground was silent except for the soft wind and distant calls of recovery teams. The stars above were clear and bright. Kale stood on a small hill overlooking the battlefield. He was tired, his armor scratched and stained, but his mind was wide awake. Mason came up beside him, leaning on a crutch but smiling. "We made it," he said quietly. Kale nodded. "Yes, but it was close." Mason looked at the scattered bodies below. Human and Varine alike. War always comes with a price. Kale turned to the human. "Why do you keep fighting, even when The cost is so high, Mason paused, because if we don't, no one else will. Because hope is worth the pain. Because there is more to life than survival. Cale thought about this. For his people, strength was power. For the humans, strength was something more. It was courage, hope, and heart. As the recovery teams worked, Cale walked among the wounded and the dead. He saw the faces of soldiers who had fought bravely. He saw tears and laughter mixed together. He saw love, fear, and sacrifice. Lily came to him, holding the rescued child. He's safe now, she said softly. Cale smiled. Thanks to you, she shook her head. Thanks. To all of us, Mason joined them. You fought well. You earned your place here. Cale looked at the humans and felt pride. Not pride in battle, but pride in their spirit. The spirit to keep going, to keep fighting, to protect what they love. That night, Cale stood beneath the stars and spoke quietly to himself. I came here to fight alongside humans. I expected war. But I found something else. I found courage. He looked up at the sky. The true terror is not the enemy we face. It is the fear that stops us. The fear that takes our hope. Cale took a deep breath. But with these humans, I have learned to fight that terror, to stand strong. No matter what, the future was uncertain. The core would return. The war would continue. But Cale was ready, not just with weapons, but with a new understanding. He was ready to fight not just for victory, but for hope.